Senator from Pickens.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this, of course, is what's commonly referred to as the restaurant carry bill that was sponsored by the senator from Dorchester, Lexington, and many other counties. The House has amended it, added some language. You know, they had quite the discussion over there about various matters relating to the CWP law, and even reconsidered some changes and then voted to send it on back over here. So what I would ask the body to do at this late hour is, otherwise, I mean, if we had the time for a lengthy discussion on this, I would ask the body to just consider debating whether or not to concur in that. We don't have time for that. We haven't had time to really review the amendments. I think the most practical thing to do is amend it back to the Senate version. That pretty well reflects the position that was landed on by this chamber several weeks ago after an extended debate. If we amend it back to the Senate version, and that's what this amendment does, then we'd have the opportunity, at least it would preserve the opportunity under the sine die resolution, for the conference committee to bring back a report that would reflect the ultimate consensus that we would otherwise have when we come back in January. It would give us one last bite at the apple through a conference committee to bring this body a report.
Senator from Richland, for what purpose do you rise?
With the senator from Pickens, use for a question.
Be delighted to
Senator
yield my
Senator yields.
friend.
Senator, I don't know whether I want to agree with the Senate version or the House version. If someone can't tell me what's in the House version, I know it's in the Senate version.
Oh, I'll be glad to get
Can you give us
the
some
synopsis of the,
information of
if he,
what they did?
Yeah.
Just in case we get to conference and y'all end up adopting the House version
well,
of it?
again, this was in the interest of time. I know there are about 6 or 7 other amendments that were put up. We're going.
Well, I just think, Senator, did you know, I think this bill is too important to do that, especially in a bill of this magnitude that would allow people to carry a concealed weapon inside a public place such as restaurants and bars and places of that.
Well, and I understand the difference of policy that existed during the debate.
Yes.
And we hashed that out quite a bit. The majority of the Senate happens to believe, number one, it's a decision by the property owner in dealing with a restaurant, and that's where we primarily think this is going to come down.
What did,
because
what did the House say about that?
same thing, except they took the midnight to 5 a.m. curfew out.
Okay.
Which is something that the Senate had put in as a means of getting this bill through this chamber on second and third reading. But my point is that the other provisions that were in the bill that came over from the House, I think they put a provision in that essentially did some work on the CWP law, and there was an initial move to increase the fee for the CWP. And I'm going to ask the...
On what to what, you know?
Well, I think it was from $50 to $75. I've seen several of these things handed out, but they're not handing me one. And I would appreciate my staff very much handing me one of those. They ran off in another direction. Yeah, you count, Senator from Edgefield. You're a good staff member, but they... I'll tell you, Senator Edgefield has been a tremendously vital part of the Judiciary Committee this year, but that was the biggie.
Well,
The other items that were added, you know, there was a provision about the ending of a CWP or an expiration while an application for renewal is pending. Thank you.
you want to
Oh,
expand?
thank you very. My staff is really picking up over here.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
To the right. Thank you.
You want to? Would you care to expand on what the House did as relates to persons who have demonstrated completion of basic military training provided by a base, the United States military who produced proof of military services through submission of DD-214? I guess that's under what to be?
That would meet the proof of training, and it would have to be submitted by a DD-214 form. That means obviously that they've had the requisite firearm training. that would.
What about competency, especially with what folk are coming back from the military and some of the issues that we've had related to whether or not those persons are really ready to, because of some emotional problems having. Now you're telling me just submit a DD-214 and I'm going to send you, get you a CWP. And he went on to another one, retired law enforcement officer producing proof of graduation from a criminal justice academy.
Right.
Showing that proof again.
Right.
Not knowing the state of mind.
I would think.
Why they retired or,
But again, the sheriff of the county has to sign off on them. I don't think that's been changed, and they have to have a clean criminal background.
Well, they don't say that.
Oh, yes, they do. I mean, that's the
Academy that he was a law enforcement officer prior to the requirements for graduation from the criminal justice academy. I don't
But
see
that allows you to file an application and use that for your training, but that doesn't automatically get you the permit, I don't believe.
Well, it doesn't give any more detailed information on that either. And he goes state or federal law enforcement officer who produced proof of graduation again, or state academy that includes firearm training, being able to again submit. And I submit to you, we're either going to have a complete process that see folk go through, or we're not going to have a process. I'm also looking at, and I'll talk about it a little bit later when I get up there, denials, revoke, reinstatements.
Senator,
pending.
Could I answer your question, though?
Yes, sir,
that you had
please.
about those items?
Yes, sir, please.
That has to do with proof of training, not to actually get the permit.
Oh, after the proof of after the
Because if
training-
you read subitem B at the bottom of page 2 on the side by side, it says person who demonstrates subitem B is a person who demonstrates any of the following must comply with the provisions of subitem A1, which is the training requirement only, and then you go down and it lists those folks as being accepted from that. Senator, my amendment, we wouldn't be called on to sign off in the very. We only have 2.5 hours left, and probably going to be some other unanimous consent requirements or requests that's going to interrupt this.
Can I just carry this over so I can take a look at it and we'll come back to it?
Come back to what?
Come back to this bill.
How long you want to carry it over? Because we got a lot of amendments to go through. Yeah, there's 2.5 hours. I was afraid you were going to say that. Well, I tell you what I'd like to do, if you would, let us dispose of this amendment, see what the predisposition of the Senate might be in standing on the Senate position, and rather than getting into we can have a pretty extended debate, somewhat discussion when we come back on a conference report. And nothing's going to. The Senate doesn't operate on a system of just forcing an issue like this. I mean, we've had quite the debate. We've had an understanding. My view with the adoption of the bill as it passed the Senate, my view of it is you don't lose a thing. You don't give up anything to let us go ahead and send it on to conference.
Why don't we just carry your amendment and see what the other amendments do, and then we'll come back to your amendment.
Well, in the interest of time, why would we want to take up anything other than the Senate position?
But Senator, this whole session you've been in a hurry. Every bill.
Well, this is the last day of the session with a little over 2 hours left, and I'm not in.
Well, every bill Senators, every bill that you come to, you're in a hurry. These things take a little time. I do.
Well, we've already debated this bill quite a bit. I don't remember how many days we were on it. And my view of it is we could adopt this amendment, and I would hope that it reflected a compromise posture of this chamber
Well, let's carry your amendment over and let's see what these other amendments do. We'll come back to it.
I don't
It's still
know,
gonna be
what
the
are,
same thing.
could you give me an idea of what we're gonna be debating?
I do not know. I don't know what other folk have put on the desk.
Did you put an amendment up?
I've got one up there.
What would your amendment do?
I get to ask the questions.
Could I ask you though?
No, sir.
Could you ask me a
You
question?
have to wait till you get to my
Well,
amendment.
I'd rather not carry my amendment over and go ahead and let's vote on it. How about that?
Your call.
I mean, I don't think I'm going to be any better off. So if it's all the same, we'll
All
just
right,
have a
Senator-
vote and talk
Senator
about
from
the
Anderson, for what purpose do you
other-
rise?
all
I wonder
other
if
amendments.
the justice from Pickens would answer a
Be
question.
delighted to answer
Senator,
my neighbor from Anderson.
Thank you, Senator. I read that you've got your curfew, and I just never was comfortable about someone's Second Amendment rights ending at midnight. But also I see here where the business owner may post a sign, as it is his or her business, it's their property, right?
That's the current law. We didn't change any of that.
But this bill that would allow you to enter into an establishment that serves alcohol, that there's that current stipulation that if the business owner doesn't want a concealed weapon, they post a sign, then it's illegal to go in.
That's correct. Like any other business.
Correct. And I agree with that because that's a property rights issue.
Sure.
What if the restaurant owner did not want to take away someone's Second Amendment rights at midnight? Could he post a sign allowing for that?
No, sir.
He couldn't.
No, sir. That's not in the Senate version. It's not in the Senate version. And let me tell you, Senator, we went through all that in here when we took the bill up. If we could vote to adopt this amendment and send it on to a conference committee, we would have an opportunity to take up a conference report between what we passed and what the House passed, which is in this side-by-side, and I'd hope you take a look at it, but we would have a chance to take that up when we come back in 2 weeks. If we don't do that, and we run out of time at 5 o'clock, it's going to be January before this bill will be right back where it is on the calendar, and I very well may be inclined to take my amendment down and let's just go ahead and concur in the House amendment.
That would be my preference.
Well,
It would seem like the simplest thing to do is just concur with the House.
But we don't have that opportunity right now. We don't have time. We don't have time to have a broad, thorough debate.
But we've already had the debate. I
No.
bet you.
On the House version. You're going to have to debate all the nuances of the House version. We don't have time. These folks are very prepared to debate at length until 5 o'clock what's in the House version. I was trying to give the Senate an opportunity to get this bill into conference so we'd have one more bite at the apple before we leave here for good this summer. If we insist on debating on the House version right now and deciding where we're going to have a a concurrence vote, there is no opportunity, in my judgment, to finish that before 5 o'clock. So it's one or the other, and I was just weighing one versus the other. At this point in time, we just don't have the time left to have a very thorough debate on the House version.
Well, we've got till 4:38, I guess, if time's going right.
Senator, I can tell you the senator from Richland has explained to me how committed he is to discussing this afternoon.
Senator from Richland's made that statement. I'd enjoy listening to the senator from Richland. I think he has a lot of good things to say.
Well, Senator, if you come down on the side of just letting him talk to 5 o'clock, that's fine. If you'd rather do that, I'm just giving this opportunity to land on something in a conference committee.
So if we vote for your amendment, we're guaranteed it's going to conference.
Not guaranteed, because we got these other amendments to go through.
So you don't.
I didn't know we're on the.
But how do you-
But that's the Senate position that we took when we gave this bill second and third reading, and that gets us into conference where we can negotiate between the House and Senate version.
Well, if you were telling me to vote for this curfew and that would guarantee us a shot at conference, I might might be willing to go along with that, but I would hate to vote for the curfew and then someone talk till 5 o'clock.
Well,
That's
I'll tell
kind
you
of the
what,
box
I'll
I
tell you
feel
what
like
let's
I'm
do.
in.
The senator from Richmond, if you want to do that, Senator from Richmond asked me to carry it over. If that's the position you're in, look, I'll be more than happy to move to carry over the amendment, and let's see if we can vote on this amendment before 5 o'clock.
Well, it makes no difference.
Move to carry over the amendment.
Motion is to carry over the pending amendment. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed by nay. Ayes have it. Amendment is carried over. The clerk will publish the next.